You're listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast with your host, Maggie Moggin.
Hi, small business owners. Welcome to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast, where we focus on creating brilliant breakthroughs for the small business owner. FYI, this is also the name of the #1 Amazon best-selling business book series for small businesses. The title is Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner, Fresh Perspectives on Profitability, People, Productivity, and Finding Peace in Your Business. You can get a digital copy or paperback. The book we're referencing today is Volume 2, which has the beautiful emerald green cover on it. Today's conversation is with #1 best-selling business author from the 2018 book, Nancy Clairmont-Carr. Well, hi, rock stars. I want to tell you my name is Maggie Moggin, and I too am a #1 best-selling business author and creator of this great annual business book series. I'm a master business coach and trainer at Brilliant Breakthroughs. But for now, let's shift our focus over to Nancy. Welcome and congratulations on being a #1 best-selling business author, Nancy.
Thank you, Maggie. With the arrival of my books, I am super, super excited about it now, and I want to tell the world.
Well, that's your job now.
Great.
Oh, that's wonderful. Isn't it exciting?
It really is. It really is. Just to know you get to share your message. It's really a privilege, actually.
Yes. So today, Nancy, we're going to talk with each other, but our listeners are going to be following us on this really great topic you wrote in the 2018 book, which is Volume 2, again, that green cover that we were talking about. You are in the second chapter of that book. And and it's really, really cool because it's titled Higher Consciousness Creates Higher Profitability. And that's a different topic than what you typically hear in the business conversations going on. And that's why you're one of the authors. We're about fresh perspectives on how to create businesses that are successful in the 21st century. So I am so thrilled that you're here. We're going to take everyone through a really great conversation. Are you ready?
I am. I hope they are.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you on that one. Okay, so you have this really big word in your title, and it's consciousness. Could you tell us how we ought to be thinking of consciousness, sort of like a definition?
I would love to. When I speak of consciousness, it's more than just being physically awake, which is what some people think of when they hear the word conscious. And it's also more than being aware. So I really see consciousness as a state of knowingness that encompasses all mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of ourselves. It determines really the lens through which we see ourselves, others, life, and opportunity. And with that lens comes our beliefs and the follow-up thoughts, habits, and results. So the beautiful thing is, as we change our consciousness, we can change the end results that we create, and our life changes. So that's why I'm excited to talk today about how consciousness level equals quality of life. And towards the end, we'll get into more detail about specifically what that means as business owners. So that's how I view consciousness.
Okay, well, that's a lot. And I think it makes sense to people the way that you just described it. So I'd like to go a little bit further and talk about how our emotions can impact our consciousness. Okay, and I think this is a big area that people know about conscious. People know that their emotion drives many things, or at least people are starting to become aware of that now, I guess I should say, right? So why don't you tell us how these two connect?
Great. I think that's a great segue. So I look at consciousness and emotion as similar and sort of on a scale, because as one goes up, so does the other. So I want to frame that for our listeners with a consciousness scale that's been around for over 20 years by Dr. David Hawkins, and he has developed the map of consciousness. And so I just want to highlight that framework a little bit
Okay.
because I feel like it gives us a point of reference to where we are in that scale. We can sort of say what we resonate with, and then we can also say what the potential is for moving forward. And that's why I like this scale. So Dr. David Hawkins developed this scale to measure consciousness from 0 to 1,000. If you think of the lower numbers, 0 to 200, as very negative emotions, and especially the bottom third as, fear, guilt, shame, those things we do understand as negative emotions. And then you go to the top of the scale and you think of love, joy, bliss, and even enlightenment, which is at the very top. You can see that there's a big range there.
There sure is.
There's a huge range. And so this scale just talks to wherever we're at. That is our lens, as I mentioned, and it relates to the kind of lifestyle we have and what we have the capability of creating. And each level creates a different opportunity. I'll put it that way. So the higher the consciousness, the more we operate from a heart-centered view, the more we have access to infinite intelligence and optimal solutions in all areas of our lives. And of course, that leads us to a more happy, fulfilled, and abundant life, which actually we are meant to experience. The numbers below 200, let's just talk about the highs and the lows here for a moment.
Okay.
The numbers below 200 are all considered linear and negative. The numbers from 200 to 1,000 progress in positive emotions and outlook. And they actually aren't linear anymore. They are logarithmic, or another word would be exponential. And so that's key because they represent a more positive and loving influence as we go up. And so just to give you an example, a person who resonates at 500, which happens to be the level of unconditional love, would counterbalance 750,000 people below 200. So that talks to the dominating power of light over darkness. And so that's one way to think about it. And if you can't relate to that, think about it like this. If you go into a completely dark room and you light a candle or you light a match, there is no room for darkness anymore. It automatically changes. And that's what happens when people who are very light-filled move around the world. They influence a large segment of humanity. And so that's why I love this frame of reference. Is it's easy to understand that, gosh, what do I want to do in life? What kind of an impact do I want to have? And guess what? You can change your level of consciousness. And that's the work that I do and am so passionate about.
I love this. And your analogy of a match or a candle in a dark room, I think everybody gets that very quickly. One of the things that I was thinking of, what is the number again? 1 to how many?
In this case, 750,000 people would be influenced if they resonate below 200 by somebody who resonates at 500 on this scale.
Okay, so I was thinking with 700, that's like one person going to a high school football game on a Friday night or whatever, right? And them being unconditional love, they impact the whole everyone that they're looking at and can see. They would offset that whole collective.
That's right, Maggie. And if you think about it, I'm sure you can understand when you are around people, sometimes you automatically feel better. They have this wonderful energy.
Right.
And when they don't, and they're on the lower side, you feel that too. It's just that the range of impact is much broader with that beautiful higher light.
Right. And another way that a lot of people can relate to this one, because when I started learning about this was my analogy, or someone gifted it to me, was Have you ever noticed that when a newborn baby enters a room, how everybody goes, oh, and they just feel happy, joyful, light, all of these wonderful words, right? And ways of being. And it's because that baby still has unconditional love.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they're shifting every part of that environment that they're in, which
Mhm.
includes people. So I just love this. And you know, if people can't relate to a football game, well, maybe they can relate to a baby, because we've all been in touch with little babies.
Exactly. So if I could just speak for a moment about some of the icons at the higher level, people might understand more what I'm talking about also.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, love, bliss, enlightenment, some of the icons that we relate to who have created uh, light over humanity, of course, would be Jesus, Buddha, Mother Teresa. Those are people that most people recognize. And if you think about the influence they had on humanity, you start to understand what we're talking about here by influence and radiating that beautiful light globally. And so the middle section of that range, you would attribute emotions like courage, willingness, acceptance, which aren't negative, but they certainly aren't, they don't have much inertia, and they don't create a lot of energy and movement. Um, and then if you go to the lower levels, you can think of, as I mentioned, fear, apathy, guilt, shame. Those are the lowest of levels.
Right.
And I like to think of that as a negative energetic straitjacket around you, where you can't seem to figure out how to address those challenges. You just can't remove the blocks, the things that are in the way to creating the lifestyle you want. And on a lighter note, it wasn't it Linus in Peanuts that walked around with that cloud over his head?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, one of those characters. And it was always dark under that cloud. And so that's kind of a symbol for what happens when people are stuck at that lower level. So something I want to say is, if you think about the globe, the planet as a whole, it vibrates at about 210. So that's an aggregate of all the people. And when I started studying this in 1995, it was at 207. So it hasn't increased a whole lot. And that sort of goes to the concept of, how do we change that? How can we increase? Well, one of the things that I have witnessed in the years that I've been working with this concept and the energy healing and the work that goes along with raising consciousness is, literally in the last 15 years, the speed of light has increased so dramatically, and the light that has filled, it's almost at a tipping point now. And that's why people are much more aware of consciousness and higher consciousness, and becoming aware of the planet and wanting to save it, and all those things that go along with humanity as a whole. And that is, that's a good directional move. And so as that continues, the vibration of the planet will increase slightly. So of course, we may not be at one number all day long every day, but it's an aggregate of the emotions we feel. So there are some really profound things that people can do to raise their consciousness, and it is possible. And I like to think of it as Michelangelo's David. He
Yeah.
saw what was inside. He saw that light that was under all the stuff, or what we would call the dark emotions in our discussion today. And by chipping away, he uncovered the most beautiful, enlightened figure. I just get the chills thinking about it, on the planet. And that's what we are capable of doing as individuals. And of course, the more we as individuals do that, again, because we now understand that light dominates over dark, we will increase the whole vibration of the planet. So that's really the work I have, and the work I'm passionate about. And in a way, Maggie, I see that as the work you do through what you do as well. And there's so many different ways that we can impact that level of consciousness. And that's what's really exciting to me.
You know, you're exactly right. There's plenty of ways because it's people in our planet. It's our environment, everything in our environment. And we all show up differently where we can either help the cause or not. And it doesn't matter even if we're aware of this or not, we're still playing our part, which is the most fascinating thing is we all have impact.
Right.
And you said a word that I thought was very interesting. You said the word influence. We have this influence. And this is the influence that we bring when we hear people say, bring your A game. This is what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be prepared and all that other stuff because you raise your resonance to go ahead and shine brightly. And then you walk in the room and you have that confidence, or you get on a call or whatever, you have confidence and that exudes. So there's this influence that's happening out there, whether we know it or not. So I always say, work with everything that's supporting you.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And if we extend that thought just a little bit further to the purpose of our book that just became a #1 bestseller,
Yes.
I would say think of the opportunity a business owner has to create this influence. So when I work with people, I start with what is the lifestyle that you want to create? Because that really is the origin of everything, right? What is it you want to create in life for you? And of course, out of that comes your purpose and, you know, maybe your health, your relationships, and certainly your work. And so business owners have this exceptional opportunity to live their purpose and impact a much bigger circle of people, influence a much larger group of humanity. And so, since I'm sure our listeners are mostly business owners or key contributors to their segment of work, let's talk to that for just a moment. What I think is so exciting is if a business owner has a particularly higher level of consciousness, or should they choose to raise their level of consciousness, let's look at all the things that can happen in that business. First off, they're going to create a culture where people rise to their highest potential because that's what is the business owner embraces and shines, you know, unconditional love, support, empowerment. And so they're going to attract that kind of person who works for them. And, you know, A begets B begets C, like-minded.
Right.
And then the other thing, you start thinking about bottom line and results. Well, I will tell you that as you connect more with infinite intelligence, your intuition, and you start getting perfect solutions in perfect timing, your profitability increases, your productivity increases, how you feel about things increases, and everything that we talk about in that book goes to a new level. So
Yes.
that's why this work to me is so powerful. It is one of the single most influential things a business owner can do to create the kind of impact they want and drive their purpose into fruition. And so I see that as just super exciting, a super exciting way of manifesting what you want. And I'd like to say if people want to know more about that topic, they can, you know, access the book on Amazon. And remember, it's the green cover, but you can learn more about higher consciousness and the role it plays on profitability and, quite frankly, your whole life.
Couldn't agree more. That's why you're part of the book series, because this is a topic that needs to come to the forefront. It's about people say the ripple effect.
Yep.
Well, even, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or you manage large corporations. This is extraordinarily relevant to you because you are a person. So you have impact, you have influence, you can make the difference. We've heard for, oh, I don't know, it's probably a century old, whoever made the quote that I'm going to paraphrase. An organization is a reflection of its leader.
Absolutely.
in that even Susan McCusker in her last podcast, she spoke about the mood of the leader and how science has proven that through emotional intelligence studies. So here we have another expert telling us the same thing from a different lens, that we all make a difference, and it's how we show up, how we choose to show up, and how our emotions play into what we create.
I want to make one other comment that just came to me. The world exists out there as it exists. However, as we change our lens, we see different opportunity.
Yes.
We can create differently. People show up differently for us, and we show up differently for them. So the possibilities are infinite for the impact that we can have by changing our lens. And that's what we're talking about. As you increase your consciousness, every level changes the lenses exponentially.
Yeah, and this is a fact. This is not woo-woo. It's a
Right.
fact. Science proves it over and over and over.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, I'd love to stay and talk more, Nancy. The good thing is we still have 3 more podcasts to do with you this year on this topic. So this is absolutely cool. Is there anything else, one more thing that you'd like to share before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I would say that it's never too late to see a bigger view of life. It's never too late to create something new and more fulfilling. And so take the first step on making that change, on going to the next level, on increasing your consciousness. You will be so grateful to be empowered in a completely different way. So I just want to thank you, Maggie, too, for allowing me to share this and actually being so literate on the topic that we can have this wonderful exchange. So thanks a lot.
Oh, well, you're welcome. This is important, and it would be silly for us not to continue the conversation, right?
Excellent.
And I thought of who that character was in Peanuts. It was Pigpen, who had
that's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. It wasn't Linus. He had the blankie. It was Pigpen.
I'm like, wait a minute. That's after we said it and we moved on. I'm like, I don't think that's right. Oh, it's Pigpen.
And we don't want to walk around like Pigpen for sure.
No, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, we want to be Michelangelo. We want to uncover the David inside of us.
Amen. Amen to that. Okay. Well, listeners, this is how you can learn more and engage with our #1 best-selling business author, Nancy Clairmont-Carr. Start by reading chapter 2, titled Higher Consciousness Creates Higher Profitability, and that is a fact. In the #1 new release book, Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner, that's volume 2, the green cover, and gift your business's performance by accepting the invitation that Nancy is offering you on her author's page at the end of the chapter. It's right there. It's a really cool invitation. It's relevant and free for you. Pretty cool gift. Plus, she has all sorts of social media handles for you to connect with her and start following her as well. So here's something that's really cool. Right now, you can see everything about the book and how to get a hold of it and Nancy Clairmont-Carr. And I say that because we have 2 Nancys in our book series. All you have to do is go to your app store and type in Brilliant Biz Book, all one word, Brilliant Biz Book, and you will have access to us for free. On our app, we have a neat feature. It's called Ask an Expert. So if you click on that, you'll see Nancy Clairmont-Carr's name. Click on it and type her a question. That'll get emailed to her, and she will respond back to you. Right, Nancy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can't wait to get the notes.
I know, and it's amazing. So we really do encourage you, if you have a question, reach out to her. There's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, we invite you to do that over and over. So I want to thank you today, Nancy, for your wisdom sharing and your time. You really brought a big chunk of this topic forward today. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie.
All right. And listeners, we appreciate you listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast, where you learn about how to create more brilliant breakthroughs for your small business. I'm going to tell you, have fun applying this week. Experiment, see what happens. Play with it. You'll be amazed. Right, Nancy?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we'll be back next week. So until then, everybody, shine brightly.